At least 3 security personnel, including the deputy of a police station, have been killed in terrorist attacks in southern Iran. Jaish Al-Adl, blacklisted by Iran as a terrorist group, claims responsibility.
US President Joe Biden will speak on the phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today, 3 days after an Israeli strike killed 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers.
Israel War Cabinet member Benny Gans called for early national elections in September as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government faces pressure at home and abroad over the war in Gaza.
The number of people injured in a 7.2 magnitude earthquake in eastern Taiwan has crossed 1,000. The death toll remained steady at 9, with 42 workers on their way to a hotel in a national park still missing.
Senior AAP leader and lawmaker Sanjay Singh walks out of jail after 6 months. This as India's top court granted bail, noting that there is no trace of the money allegedly received as bribes by the AAP leader for allotting liquor licenses.
Bayern Leverkusen are on the verge of a historic league and cup double. Xabi Alonso's side thrashed Dusseldorf 4-0 to book a place in the final of the German Cup.
And our top focus on world DNA. The terror outfit Jaish Al-Adl has claimed responsibility for simultaneous attacks on military posts in southeastern Iran.
Well, at least 3 members of the security forces are killed in the attacks. Now, the simultaneous attacks targeted law enforcement headquarters in Chabar belonging to Iran's border guards and the Revolutionary Guards base in Rusk, both in the Sistan-Baluchistan province.
Meanwhile, there are reports of attacks on a police station in Chabar, where Deputy Chief Officer Abbas Mir has been killed by the terror outfit. According to reports, Iran's Deputy Minister of Interior, Majid Mirhamadi, said that the terrorists had set up ambushes along the nearby roads to prevent security forces from chasing them. Reports also suggest that clashes are still underway, but the terrorists have been surrounded. According to Iran's Deputy Minister of Interior, 1 terrorist has been killed in Chabar and several others have been wounded.
Jaish Al-Adl is a Sunni terror group and Iran is a Shia power. The terror outfit has carried out dozens of large and small operations over the years against Iranian military forces, including cross-border attacks and abduction of border guards and security personnel, as well as bombings that led to the killing of civilians.
The terror group Jaish Al-Adl has reportedly found a safe haven in Pakistan from where they have been launching their attacks. The group has targeted Iran through suicide bombings, kidnappings, ambush attacks, hit and run.
Now, US President Joe Biden will speak with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the phone, and this comes 3 days after Israel launched an attack in which 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers were killed in Gaza.
Right, the aid workers were killed when their convoy was hit shortly after they oversaw the unloading of 100 tons of food brought to Gaza by sea. The White House has described Biden as outraged and heartbroken by the attack. However, the president has made no fundamental change in the United States' support for Israel in its war with Gaza.
And so we are going to continue to mourn with them, with Chef Jose Andres and obviously the families. I'm just not going to, he's going to speak for himself. We are very clear about where we stand. I think the president's statement was incredibly powerful, impactful, and really truly lays out how he feels about the current situation.
A U.S. official said that Biden was likely to bring up the need for better protections for humanitarian aid workers and for an increase in food shipments into Gaza. Celebrity chef and World Central Kitchen founder Jose Andres said that the food aid operations have been halted for now.
We need to go every day until we assess what really is the situation and how we can obviously try to keep going on operations. But at this point, the situation is halted. But again, we are trying to go hour by hour, analyzing the situation, how to keep doing the work. We do, the World Central Kitchen does, in places like Ukraine, obviously now in places like Gaza, in places like Lebanon, in places like Armenia. But most and foremost, we need to feel, all of us, we need to feel safe.
Concern about the slow pace of aid supplies on land, the United States has been carrying out airdrops and building a temporary pier for shipments from the sea. U.S. and Israeli representatives had earlier met virtually to discuss Israel's threat to launch a broad offensive in the southern Gaza city of Rafah, where many Palestinians have fled to escape fighting elsewhere.
The US and Israel plan further discussions at an in-person meeting of representatives next week. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said that while the in-person meeting was unlikely to reach firm conclusions, Washington hoped to make progress on how to root out Hamas militants from Rafah without harming civilians.
Nobody is working harder than Joe Biden or this administration on trying to get a ceasefire in place so that we can get the hostages out. So I guess I'm just going to take issue with, the premise of the question. We have been exceedingly consistent and clear with our expectations for the prosecution of these operations.
And from on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
The upcoming phone call between President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will come after President Biden criticized Israel for not protecting aid workers in Gaza. The discussion may address the planned military operation in Rafah and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Here at home, President Biden met with a small group of Muslims at the White House, but the meeting was marked by tension. One attendee, Dr. Tahir Ahmad, walked out of the meeting in protest, citing his support for Palestinians and his belief that the White House needs to do more, as progressives took a victory lap when tens of thousands of primary voters in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin voted uncommitted on Tuesday over the president's policies regarding the war in Gaza. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Israel War Cabinet member Benny Gans has called for national elections in September, and this while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government continues to face pressure at home and abroad over the war in Gaza.
Well, Israel's unrelenting air, ground and sea assault has killed more than 32,000 Palestinians and led to a humanitarian catastrophe. Gantz said he believed an agreed election date would allow Israeli society to renew its contract with its leadership. Thousands of Israelis have taken to the streets in recent days demanding new elections. Many have criticized Netanyahu and expressed anger at his government's handling of the 134 Israeli hostages still held in Gaza 6 months into the war.
I believe that the Israeli society needs to renew its contract with its leadership, and I think the only way to do it and still maintaining the national effort in fighting Hamas and terrorist group and other security challenges is by having an agreed election date that we have to discuss when and if. And I hope that my political partners and friends, and maybe some rivals as well, will agree to it, because I think it serves all the country and all its sectors in the same time.
Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving prime minister, has repeatedly ruled out early elections, which opinion polls suggest that he would lose. Netanyahu says going to the polls in the middle of a war would only reward Hamas. His Likud party stated that Gans must stop engaging in petty politics during the ongoing war. Netanyahu has pledged to bring the hostages home as well as destroy Hamas. It is unclear how Israel would be able to do so, and some experts doubt that this is even possible.
Gans, a former army general, joined Netanyahu's government in the early days of the war as a gesture of political unity during the crisis. This happened in October last year. Polls suggest that his party would come top in any election and he would be the favorite to take over as premier. In a sign of the strain between Washington and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's government, Vice President of the US Kamala Harris hosted Benny Gans in March.
Well, surveys indicate most Israelis disapprove of Netanyahu's leadership since the Hamas-led attack on communities in southern Israel on October 7th that killed 1,200 Israelis. If left unchanged, the next vote for parliament is set for October 27th, 2026, as per Israel's Central Elections Committee.
Yeah.
Taiwan was hit by an earthquake of 7.2 magnitude on Wednesday. The earthquake is said to be the biggest one that Taiwan has seen in 25 years.
Right, Shriman. So far, the disaster has claimed 9 lives, injured more than 1,000 people, while 42 workers traveling in minibuses to a hotel in National Park, they are still missing.
Now, in the Hualien County, which was the epicenter of the quake, many buildings tilted at precarious angles in the mountainous, sparsely populated county. The earthquake also triggered massive landslides. Scores of emergency workers were trying to shore up damaged buildings and demolish those deemed impossible to save. A 10-story structure called the Uranus building that housed a mix of homes and shops was tilted over and appeared to be on the verge of collapse.
Many of its residents managed to flee when shock waves hit, with rescuers working through the day to free people trapped inside. Residents in Hualien slept outdoors overnight as more than 50 aftershocks rocked the region.
Meanwhile, rescue teams are trying to reach more than 100 people trapped in mining areas. Most power has been restored after the quake. Electricity utility Thai Power said, with the island's 2 nuclear power stations unaffected. Taiwan's high-speed rail operator said that no damage or injuries were reported on its trains, although services would be delayed as it made inspections. Taiwan weather officials ranked Wednesday's quake in Hualien as upper 6, or the second highest level of intensity on a scale ranging from 1 to 7.
Transport Minister Wang Guocai highlighted the extensive damage to critical infrastructure, including the Taipei's MRT circular line, Suhua Highway, and several Hualien tunnels, isolating the eastern part of the island. The reliance on sea transport is anticipated to continue for the foreseeable future.
Moving on, in an interview, Rishi Sunak said he was undecided on the date of next general election. Well, the British Prime Minister's Conservative Party is all set for a heavy defeat at the polls expected later this year.
Well, a seat prediction published on Wednesday showed the opposition Labour Party winning more than 400 seats. Now, the YouGov model projected that Sunak's Conservatives would win just 155 seats and Labour would win 403 seats. Now, those are the predictions. Britain's parliament has 650 seats. Polls have consistently given Labour a double-digit lead over Conservatives ahead of an election which Sunak has said he expects to call in the second half of the year.
Yeah, I said my working assumption is there'll be an election in the second half of the year, and I'll stick to that. But ultimately, look, we've got a long-standing tradition. It's the Prime Ministers that decide when we're going to call an election, and I haven't decided because I'm busy focusing on the things that matter to people, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. Making sure that we improve the economy, get people's pay packets rising, cutting their taxes, getting illegal migration down,
Lots of our readers have written in.
That's the things that I'm focused on delivering for people.
Sunak also defended his government's contentious bill to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. He told the Sun newspaper's political editor, Harry Cole, that controlling illegal migration is more important than UK's membership of European Court. The United Nations Human Rights Committee urged Britain in March to abandon the bill, which could become law next month. Sunak's Conservative government wants to relocate thousands of asylum seekers who arrive in Britain on small, inflatable boats each year to live in Rwanda. Legal challenges have so far prevented anyone being sent to the East African country.
If you come to our country illegally, you won't be able to stay and we will be able to return you. Either to your home if it's safe, but if not, to a safe alternative, and that's where Rwanda comes in. Now, that's why I'm doing everything I can to get this bill through Parliament so that we can start sending people to Rwanda.
Now, as Paris gears up for the 100-day countdown to the Olympic Games, French police are removing dozens of migrants, including families with young children, from the forecourt of the Paris City Hall.
Arriving at dawn, the police removed around 50 people, mostly women and children aged 3 to 10, who were bundled up in strollers. The migrants boarded a bus to temporary government housing in the town of Besançon in eastern France. Many of these families are from the French-speaking African countries, including Burkina Faso, Guinea and Senegal.
They told us we were going to the provinces. It's better than sleeping outside with the children. That's no way to live. It's tiring for us.
While the Olympic organizers said they are working with aid groups to find solutions, aid workers have expressed concern over the eviction drive by the Paris authorities. They say it is the beginning of a broader effort to clear out the migrants and others in the capital before the Olympic Games without providing longer-term housing options.
There had been families sleeping under tarpaulins for 2 days. It's terrible to say, but it didn't look like there were any human beings under there. They are families, they are minors, they are our patients, they are our people with whom we are trying to show solidarity. And now, because of the Olympic Games, all we are offering them is to go far away to Besançon or Marseille.
Moving on, Uganda's constitutional court has refused to suspend an anti-LGBTQ law.
Now, and that includes the death penalty for certain same-sex acts. The court, however, found some of the provisions inconsistent with certain fundamental human rights.
The petitioners sought a myriad of remedies that essentially call for the nullification of the entire Anti-Homosexuality Act 2023. Having held as we have in the body of the judgment, we decline to nullify the Anti-Homosexuality Act 2023 in its entirety. Neither would we grant a permanent injunction against its enforcement.
The legislation adopted in May last year is among the world's harshest anti-gay laws. It has been condemned by rights campaigners and drawn sanctions from Western nations. President Yoweri Museveni signed the bill into a law in May last year. The law is supported by many in the East African country, but activists have contested and demonstrated the law in court, but the judges declined to overturn it in their ruling.
The court essentially said that the law is justified insofar as it discriminates against LGBTI people, as far as it denies them a right to participate in the governance of this country. They said those restrictions are proportional. And in doing so, the court relied on public sentiments. The court relied on what it calls moral values of this society. And the court, by its decision, simply endorsed the discrimination of LGBTI individuals in this country.
The law defines aggravated homosexuality as cases of homosexual relations involving a minor and other category of vulnerable people, or when the perpetrator is infected with HIV. A suspect convicted of attempted aggravated homosexuality can be imprisoned for up to 14 years, and the offence of attempted homosexuality is punishable by up to 10 years.
Homosexuality was already illegal in Uganda under a colonial-era law, criminalizing sexual activity against the order of nature in courts. The punishment for the offence is life imprisonment. And it's time now for a quick short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. We will be back on the other side of the break. From India, Aam Aadmi Party senior leader Sanjay Singh steps out of prison after 6 months behind bars in an alleged liquor corruption case, the same one in which Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has also been arrested. We'll get you the complete story.
And in Pakistan, in what seems like a brazen act of intimidation, deadly anthrax bacteria has been mailed to 16 of the nation's top judges. Among the intended targets were the serving Supreme Court judges. We'll get you the full report after this short break.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Everyone loves a contest. But sport isn't just about victory and defeat. When the GOATs in sport speak, you hear it first on WION.
You have to play good cricket over a period of time.
I should push myself right out of the damn tournament.
We go beyond the stats. Our stories are quoted the world over.
At WION, sport is part of our DNA. Come, join us on this journey. Weekdays 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues. Sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
Strongest earthquake in 25 years rocks Taiwan. Mega quake topples buildings and damages infrastructure. 7.2 magnitude quake claims innocent lives, triggers landslide in Hualien state. Japan and Philippines also issue tsunami warning. Continuous coverage on WION World is One.
Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying with us. You're watching World DNA with me, Raisha and Shivan. On the show so far, we were speaking about how US President Joe Biden is all set to hold a telephonic conversation with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and this comes 3 days after an alleged Israeli strike killed 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers. We'll of course be tracking that very closely here on the show.
Also big developments which came in from Iran. In southeastern Iran, simultaneous attacks took place on military outposts, and these were carried out by terror group Jaish Al-Adl. Now, this is a group which has a safe haven in Pakistan. We are tracking those developments coming in very closely. For now, let's get you started with all else that's happening around the world. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. Here are the headlines.
At least 3 security personnel, including the deputy of a police station, have been killed in terrorist attacks in southern Iran. Jaish Al-Adl, blacklisted by Iran as a terrorist group, claims responsibility.
US President Joe Biden will speak on the phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today, 3 days after an Israeli strike killed 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers in Gaza.
Israel War Cabinet member Benny Gans called for early national elections in September as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government faces pressure at home and abroad over the war in Gaza.
The number of people injured in a 7.2 magnitude earthquake in eastern Taiwan has crossed 1,000. The death toll remains steady at 9, with 42 workers on their way to a hotel in a national park still missing.
Senior AAP leader and lawmaker Sanjay Singh walks out of jail after 6 months. This as India's top court granted bail, noting that there is no trace of the money allegedly received as bribes by the AAP leader for allotting liquor licenses.
Bayer Leverkusen are on the verge of a historic league and cup double. Xabi Alonso's side thrashed Düsseldorf 4-0 to book a place in the final of the German Cup.
In India, Aam Aadmi Party senior leader Sanjay Singh stepped out of prison after 6 months.
Now, he was behind bars in an alleged liquor corruption case, and this is the same case in which Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has also been arrested.
And these are the images when Sanjay Singh stepped out of Tihar jail, which is India's largest prison. A huge crowd of supporters gathered outside the jail to welcome the AAP leader on his release. Singh was welcomed by loud cheers and slogans as soon as he walked out of prison.
The Aam Aadmi Party leader climbed atop a vehicle parked outside the jail. He was granted bail by the Supreme Court.
ये जश्न का वक्त नहीं है, ये जंग का वक्त है.
This is not a time to celebrate. It's a time to fight. We need to come together for this struggle. Our party's biggest leaders, Arvind Kejriwal, Manish Sisodia and Satyendra Jain, are in jail. We have a long fight ahead of us.
Addressing party members gathered outside Tihar jail, Singh emphasized that it is not the time to celebrate, but rather a period of struggle.
और देखो देखो कौन आया, 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 और देखो.
Delhi Chief Minister and Aam Aadmi Party Chief Arvind Kejriwal is currently under judicial custody till the 15th of April. Singh was also seen meeting Arvind Kejriwal's wife outside the Chief Minister's residence.
The court has also imposed stringent conditions on Singh. This includes that he will surrender his passport and not leave the country. Singh will also have to provide his itinerary through email and keep his Google location on if he leaves the National Capital Region of Delhi.
Bharat Mata Ki! Bharat Mata Ki!
In Pakistan, what seems like a brazen act of intimidation, deadly anthrax bacteria was mailed to 16 of the nation's top judges.
And among the intended targets were the serving Supreme Court judges. Here's a report by WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik from Islamabad. Take a look.
12:45 GMT on Tuesday. You heard it here.
Some big news coming in from Pakistan, where the Islamabad High Court judges, it seems, have received mysterious letters which contain powder in it. Investigations have now revealed that the powder is anthrax.
Islamabad High Court is asking 24 hours later why the police still have no clue as to who is behind these letters. The drama began on Tuesday when 8 Islamabad High Court judges received letters containing ominous threats and a suspicious white powder. The laboratories confirmed the substance had the deadly anthrax bacteria. Panic erupted as former Lahore High Court judges got similar poisonous packages. The culprit is untraced. The letter, signed off as Resham, provided no return address. The letters contained a suspicious powdery substance, and messages were also posted to the Supreme Court judges, including the Chief Justice of Pakistan, Qazi Faiz Issa. The timing of the anthrax letters is also curious. Recently, 6 Islamabad High Court judges levelled accusations that Pakistan's powerful intelligence agency, the ISI, was meddling in judicial affairs. The Supreme Court set up a special team to investigate these sensational claims. Swift answers are imperative. A comprehensive probe identifying culprits and motives is crucial to restoring public trust and judicial safety.
These letters are laden with powder which is believed to be anthrax because it says on the outer side. These letters have been critical of Pakistan's judicial system and especially with regards to the blasphemy laws. Now, that being said, 24 hours later, since the letters being first received, the Islamabad police and the administration seem clueless as to who has sent these letters, and they say that they are trying to get a hold of the CCTV footages and trying to track back the identity of the sender of these suspicious, mysterious letters. Anas Malik in Islamabad, Pakistan for WION World is One.
On the world of business now, for the first half of the year, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its partners decided to maintain oil production cutbacks.
Now, this will keep global crude markets tight and oil prices elevated. Brent crude rose to over $90 per barrel after the OPEC Plus decision. A panel of key members convened by Saudi Arabia did not propose policy changes at an online review meeting on Wednesday. Output limits of 2 million barrels per day will remain until June. Oil prices hit $90 per barrel in London, the highest level this year due to OPEC and allied cutbacks and surprisingly robust petrol demand. Crude prices are also rising from the conflict in Ukraine. According to JP Morgan Chase, the supply cuts will push oil prices above $100 per barrel.
And that spells discomfort for consumers still smarting from years of rampant inflation. It also complicates the job of central banks seeking to ease monetary policy. However, the rally shows up important government revenues for Saudi and its allies. The group's supply cuts have managed to tighten the market. That despite some key members not implementing their agreed reductions. Iraq and Kazakhstan have a patchy track record when it comes to supply. Baghdad has often chafed against OPEC Plus output limits as it seeks revenues to rebuild a shattered economy.
The US Federal Reserve at its meeting on 20th of March left the key lending rate unchanged, as was expected by the market.
And following the announcement, all eyes were on the US Fed's dot plot to look for signals on the next rate cut. Our next report explains what a dot plot is and why it's important now. Take a look.
In the world of finance, numbers and graphs can help economists understand the state of economies better. Now, the Federal Reserve is turning to something called the dot plot to think about its future interest rates. The dot plot is a graph that indicates how many times a particular value occurs using dots. The scale of the chart is fairly simple and used to represent small sets of data. The Federal Reserve's dot plot indicates what the members of the Federal Open Market Committee or FOMC believe should be the appropriate interest rate over various time periods. Since the highest number of Fed officials believe the lending rate should be around 75 basis points lower, the markets are pricing in rate cuts of 25 basis points over 3 meetings. In the past 4 meetings where the federal funds rate was raised, it was increased by 25 basis points. Therefore, the market is expecting that on the way down too. Given that the inflation is still high by historical standards, market feels the Fed will be wary of big cuts in interest rates. While the dot plot helps economists and investors access the extent of rate cuts by the Fed, it hasn't always been indicative of what the Fed will eventually commit to. So just like every other forecasting method used in the financial world, the dot plot graph must be read with acceptable variations. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And next up, let's take a look at all the developments coming in from the world of technology, starting with the US Cyber Safety Review Board, which has revealed that a targeted Chinese hack of high-ranking government officials' emails last year was preventable. The review board has blamed the tech giant Microsoft for cybersecurity lapses and a lack of transparency. The breach was carried out by a China-linked group that had hacked into a Microsoft engineer's corporate account. According to the board's report, Microsoft made decisions that decreased the company's risk security, its risk management and customer trust.
The board has urged Microsoft to implement security-focused reforms across all its goods to avoid similar incidents in the future. In the United States, California has proposed a new bill that advocates the right to disconnect from work after hours, that is. If passed, it could mean that employees can ignore work communications outside of work hours except communications related to emergencies or work schedules. If the bill were to become a law, both public and private employers would have to compulsorily adopt this policy to allow the employees to disconnect from work-related matters. If passed, California will become the first state in the US to implement this right. Globally, 13 countries, including Australia, France and Spain, have already enacted laws related to disconnecting from work.
The US National Institute of Standards and Technology has developed a technique that can allow ordinary smartphones to accurately measure blood glucose levels. Most modern phones come equipped with a magnetometer, which is a compass that is used for navigation purposes. The institute's researchers have repurposed this feature to detect glucose concentrations in humans. This innovative technique promises high sensitivity that can potentially enable glucose monitoring from saliva in the future. The researchers have emphasized the affordability and simplicity of the technology that could be mass-produced as inexpensive test kits.
On the world of sports now, Kolkata Knight Riders were not able to break Sunrisers Hyderabad's record of the highest team total in the Indian Premier League. But the mammoth 272 for 7, courtesy of swashbuckling innings from Sunil Narine, Angaresh Raghuvanshi and Andre Russell, helped them defeat